There are a lot of animals on Earth, and sometimes the survival of one is based on the demise of another. But when it comes to our pets, that's not what we want to hear. This python twisted a mama dog. Seconds later, the unimaginable happened. The mother dog was completely focused on keeping her puppies safe from the massive snake in front of them. Keeping all three of them safe was almost impossible. The puppies ran all over, and she jumped in front of them as far as she could. She was completely focused on her pups when the python lunged. It grabbed her and started to twist around the mama dog. While her humans were inside the house, the python started to squeeze and hold on. Her time was running out. She couldn't bark. She could barely breathe. Did the dog understand how close she was to death? If she didn't make it, she would leave a huge hole in her family. She was loved like any other member of the family. When Anna and Peter took over the family farm, they found that their old family dog wouldn't be enough to guard their new, huge property in South Africa. That's why they decided to get another German Shepherd. The new pup was named Brutus. He grew strong, surrounded by the love that Anna and Peter poured into his training, and developed a firm bond with his family, especially with Peter. Brutus followed him everywhere. He was sweet, but his behavior made Anna nervous. The older dog passed away soon after the puppy's arrival, which meant that she was left all alone when Brutus and Peter were out on the farm. It could be scary, since Anna didn't grow up on the farm. There was nothing like a night in the African bush, no street lamps anywhere in sight of their home. The darkness could be thick, not to mention the ominous presence of certain animals like the jackals with their unsettling cries at night. Sometimes Peter stayed overnight, and it freaked Anna out. Knowing this, Peter came up with an idea. He returned home and asked Anna to grab a few things from the pickup truck. It was a strange request, but she didn't even think about it and went out. In the passenger seat, she saw a little female German Shepherd waiting for her. The puppy wiggled and licked her face as soon as Anna picked her up. Anna was charmed, and so was Brutus. They called the pup Coco, and the two dogs instantly became best friends. But one day, everything changed in the most tragic way imaginable. By the time Coco was 3 years old, they had fallen into a nice rhythm. Brutus still went out with Peter, but Coco stayed glued to Anna. One day, Peter came back from the field and asked where Brutus was. Anna hadn't seen the dog all day. She thought he had left with Peter. That was when panic set in. They both knew something was wrong right away. All day, Coco had been nervous and on edge. Anna had closed her in the house because she kept barking and trying to run off. They couldn't believe they hadn't noticed the dog was missing. Minutes later, it was going to get so much worse. When they took Coco out on a leash, they hoped she would lead them to Brutus, but they didn't want her getting away if there was any danger around. They had to be careful. The dog barked as she started to rush toward the bush. She rushed, and the couple followed along the dirt path just beyond the house. There they saw something that made them feel sick. The snake that had slithered through there must have been massive, but that wasn't the thing that got their attention. It was what was next to the snake track that was horrifying. Tufts of dog hair lay next to the snake track. Black and brown pieces of fur were scattered all over, and in it, there was some blood. Something terrible had happened there. Then Coco cried softly. Anna and Peter knew that the dog had realized it too. They weren't going to find Brutus. It was dark, and they wouldn't be able to do anything more that night. Heartbroken, they all headed back home. Peter was furious. He couldn't sleep, and at first light, he went out to search for the snake. After having such a terrible and large meal the previous day, they expected to spot the snake quickly, but they couldn't find it. They kept searching for it for days, but it had vanished. It stayed missing for months. Wherever it was hiding, it wasn't gone completely. Winter arrived, and the snake probably found a cozy place to sleep through the colder months. Back at home, Anna and Peter were sad and felt guilty. Even Coco seemed to be out of sorts. She was a lot sleepier than usual, napping far more than normal. Anna realized something amazing. Coco was pregnant. She was going to have Brutus's puppies. It would be like having a small part of him back. They just had to make sure the puppies stayed safe and that Coco remained healthy. They made sure she stayed close to the house for months, but nothing scary happened. One night, when the couple came home from dinner, Coco was napping in her bed, but she wasn't alone. Two tiny puppies lay next to her. Anna and Peter were shocked. Then Coco stood up again and started to pace. They grabbed the puppies to make sure she didn't trample them, and soon her third puppy was born. She licked him, but he didn't move. Peter picked him up and gently rubbed him on his chest, blowing on the tiny puppy's nose. Suddenly, the puppy was breathing. Peter placed him back next to Coco, and she settled down and fed her 3 puppies. It was adorable. The little boy they almost lost looked so much like Brutus as a puppy. It was bittersweet. Coco was a great mom and made sure the puppies didn't stray too far. They kept them in a playpen most of the time, but now they could run free. They should have been safe, but living in the African bush, even close to home, could be dangerous. Peter had fenced the house, making sure the dogs couldn't run into the bush on their own, but that wasn't going to help on this particular day. Coco was focused on keeping the puppies together while they played in the yard, but then a sound or smell alerted her to something strange. Before she knew it, the puppies were almost on top of a massive python. She jumped in front of them, trying to protect them, but the puppies were still so young and curious that they didn't realize they were in great danger. They tried to get closer to inspect the snake. Each time one of them got closer, Coco jumped in front of them and tried to keep them away from the snake. This was likely the same snake that took Brutus, so who knows what could happen. Before she knew it, the snake was wrapped around her, twisting tightly. Anna was in the house and heard Coco bark. She was just on her way to check when the dog stopped. She thought that meant everything was fine. What she didn't know was that the dog stopped barking because the air was being squeezed out of her. Coco was at the mercy of the snake. She couldn't bark, and she could barely take a breath. Was this going to be the end? Was this snake going to make the 3 puppies orphans? The python twisted the mama dog, and seconds later, the unimaginable happened. Just as it seemed like all hope was lost, the 3 puppies began to bark furiously. They even tried to bite the snake, but they didn't make much of an impression. The puppies couldn't help much, but their furious barking got Anna's attention in the house. They had never sounded so angry. Not hearing Coco now suddenly scared her. Anna couldn't believe what she was seeing right there in front of her. She screamed for Peter to come as quickly as he could and to bring vinegar with him. She was nauseous looking at the sight in front of her. Her beloved dog Coco was being crushed by one of the biggest pythons Anna had ever seen. She screamed for Peter again, and he finally came running. Anna's desperate screams told him all he needed to know. She was terrified. As soon as he saw the massive python around their dog, he knew why. He also knew that this snake was likely responsible for the loss of their beloved Brutus. They were determined not to lose another dog to this python. They took the vinegar and poured some over the snake's mouth. They knew it might hurt Coco and burn the wound caused by the snake, but survival was more important at that moment. Tasting the vinegar, the snake stopped biting down and loosened its grip on her body while trying to get away from the taste. They had to gently unwrap it to get it away from Coco. While they unwrapped it, they also held onto its head, keeping it away from Coco so it couldn't bite down again. Soon, she was free. They didn't know how much damage had already been done and how much of her body was crushed inside. But as soon as they freed her from the snake, she started to breathe deeply and whimper. She was still alive after all. While Peter still held the snake, Anna ran and got a big bucket. It would have been easy to take revenge on this creature now. They knew that the python was just a wild animal trying to survive. They wouldn't kill it for revenge. Still, they didn't want it anywhere close to the house. Finding easy prey, it could keep returning. They put holes in the lid of the bucket and later took the python to a snake shelter where it would be cared for and live in a massive enclosure. Peter and Anna decided to keep all 3 of them. They had plenty of space for all 4 dogs to enjoy. Thanks for watching, and join us again for even more incredible stories that will inspire you.